Okay. So the question becomes, how can we use light in a way to stop and reverse human aging? So we have been doing these experiments now for well over 10 years. And the place this started was to take an ordinary metal like tin. Now, we've done this with aluminum, we've done this with copper and bismuth, a variety of other metals. But I'm just going to use tin as an example. And if we take tin and we expose it to oxygen, this could be pure oxygen or even just there's enough oxygen in the ambient air, and we expose it to heat, we get a normal tin oxide. There's nothing unusual about that. However, if we were to use electromagnetic energy, and we were to introduce the electromagnetic energy during this process while the oxygen is binding to the metal, what we found is that we can create an entirely new species of metal oxide that never existed before. And this is something that I received a number of patents on. So this reminds me of Steve Jobs. You know one thing I didn't like about Steve Jobs? This is kind of like from a Bill Burr joke, so I'm going to borrow it. But what I didn't like about Steve Jobs is he always went out on stage by himself and took credit for everything, right? Walked out there in a t-shirt, no socks, like it was no biggie, right? And he never gave credit to his engineers. Well, we have one of our engineers today who has been our chief engineer at our laboratory. I just want to recognize him for a moment, Mr. George Sanchez. Give him a nice round of applause. So George has been with me now for more than 15 years. I think we're going on 17 years together. And I come up with all these crazy ideas, and George is the best computer programmer, CAD designer that you will ever find. So I come in and say, hey, George, you know, here is a scratch of an invention. He looks at it and says, yeah, I think I can design that. He'll design it in the computer. We print a model on a 3D printer. We take it to the machine shop that we have, and now all of a sudden we have a working invention. So this came as a result of a collaboration between Big George and I. So what we found, and here's the really interesting part. So keep in mind, we're taking a metal and we're taking oxygen and we're bringing them together to form something that never existed before, and we're doing that by embedding light, or we're using electromagnetism to change the angle at which the metal and the oxygen bind to one another. And when we change the frequency or the wavelength of light, the color of the metal changes. So we can produce something that looks like gold, red, orange, blues, purples, all by using energy. And then we send these out to labs, and what we find is that these materials never existed before, and they have some really interesting applications. So why is this important? Why am I sharing this with you? It's because hydrogen has a metallic state. And if we think of hydrogen as a metal, and we think about it with respect to these experiments, it means if we took hydrogen and we took oxygen, and during their formation we used electromagnetism or light, we might be able to create an entirely new species of water that never existed before. So this was the genesis, this was the beginning of X2O. And those initial laboratory experiments were incredibly rewarding, but it has taken us a long time to take that from a laboratory experiment to equipment that we could actually put into something we could manufacture, and there's been a lot of stumbling blocks along the way. But fortunately, we've gotten there now. So that's what X2O is all about. So one of the questions is, if we have a new technology now for creating a new type of water that never existed before, what wavelengths of light should we use and why? Well, this is where we look to nature. So if we can understand how certain species, like lobster, are defying the aging process, and we know that it's light that all living systems are using for communication, that means if we can understand this biological code, or as we call it, the code of creation, if we could understand this biological code, that means we can put those wavelengths of light that are responsible for a species' biological immortality, we can put that into water. And if we put that into water and human beings can consume it, that means the water goes everywhere throughout the body, so now we have a way of delivering light throughout the entire body. So we look at spectrophotometry data and studies that have been done on lobster, and we see that one of the critical wavelengths of light is 550 nanometers. We see there's another interesting peak of light between 700 and 710 nanometers. And we also know that from stem cell experiments that we've done that 630 nanometer light is critical for energy production and mobilization of stem cells. So 550, 710, 630. That's the code that lobsters are using. Last night, I had the opportunity to share with you the code that is found in the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. We see the numbers 999, 888, 777. And we see the ratios of one number to another. These are the same ratios. So when God was creating all things, he put his signature in light into species that are immortal as a sign of his existence. So this is normal distilled water that we freeze, and we put this in a beaker, and you can see there's nothing unusual about it, it's just normal ice. However, when we take water from X2O, water that is infused with light, it adopts a very specific structure. It becomes highly coherent. And as a matter of fact, the water implodes and releases energy. So you can see that there is these highly organized crystal threads that implode like a vortex. We even see a vortex funnel form inside of this ice. It's the same formation we see in all living systems. So this is what this process looks like over time. We take distilled water, it doesn't matter what type of water it is, but you get slightly different effects depending on the type of water. But we use distilled water because it's a control. But you can see we process this now for 2.5 hours, 3.25 hours, and you can see the water is imploding and forming this beautiful egg-shaped vortex funnel in the center, and the ice threads are moving closer. Interestingly, the longer that we process the water becomes so coherent that it becomes crystal clear like glass. So let's show a quick video of what this looks like. So we see the water, as it freezes, forms these crystal threads. This is evidence that these are highly coherent structures, not random oscillations, chaotic oscillations as you would find in normal ice. And then we get this vortex bubble that forms in the center. So this is a pattern that we see in nature around all living systems, and we've duplicated that in the water that you now can drink. Okay. All right, let's continue on. Okay, so what happens when we drink this water? Simply, the studies that we have now on X2O show that when you drink this water, within the first 15 seconds, there's a measurable increase in bioelectrical activity of the body. Many people will experience this as an improvement in circulations. Those of you that have tried it, you know that you can feel this rush of energy that goes up into your head. You experience improvements in cognition, in awareness. Some people experience a buzzing effect in the frontal lobes and around the eyes. So we get a very pronounced bioelectrical effect within seconds of drinking the water. That's measurable. 100%. I think it's really cool. 100% of the people that drink this have a measurable change. So we have an incredible product to market. When we do urine testing, amongst urine testing, blood tests, we see measurable changes in the metabolism. And a pattern begins to form when we look at which amino acids specifically are being metabolized. So glycine, which of course is part of copper peptide, part of glutathione, increases in metabolism from consuming X2O. Valine, one of the branched chain amino acids necessary for muscle protein synthesis, that increases when consuming X2O. Proline, which is, as we know, foundational for collagen production, and collagen production is foundational for longevity, increases when we consume X2O. And then leucine, of course, which activates mTOR for muscle protein synthesis. Those of you that are athletes will notice that when you consume X2O, as long as you're taking enough protein and getting enough exercise, you'll build muscle faster with X2O. And then importantly, because we're talking about longevity, we see that X2O activates the KP pathway, which turns on production of NAD, which again is a key molecule in anti-aging and age reversal. Interestingly, in vitro work that we've done with X2O has shown an increased production of NAD in the fibroblasts, which is what makes collagen. Users import, of course, improved energy, what someone experienced with X2O, improvements in energy, which lasts 3 to 5 hours, improvements in cognition, improvements in eyesight. These aren't necessarily all things that we're going to be making claims about, because we're not going to make medical claims, but general improvements in overall health and wellness, which last for many hours. So life is about energy and information. X2O infuses water with light that stimulates energy production throughout the body. And this is the first time there's been a technology available where we can put light inside the body and have it go everywhere needed. So we're in the perfect place to market this product and help millions of people around the world.